All right, I think we are live. Um, Let me just see the vitals.
The virals.
Yeah, I just need to check that everything is really working, so to ensure
It,
that we don't talk to ourselves.
it sounds like a dashboard of like a starship or something. Like virals.
I hope. Did you see my avatar? The AI created avatar. It's basically some sort of a spaceship vibe,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I really hope that I actually will manage to live to the point that I will be able to travel in
Command
space.
starship. Yeah.
Yeah, for real.
I mean, it's we started with some small journeys, to the atmosphere with I think Virgin Galactic, I think, or something like this.
Absolutely.
So it's we are time away, but it's not like those fancy, ships that you see like on cartoons and movies. So it's quite nice.
Yeah. All right. Let's welcome the people that we have in the chat. So we have David, we have Amir. Hi, folks. Thanks for joining. Let us know where you are joining from. So we just could really celebrate with you and the fact that we are actually went live after, I think, almost 2, 3 weeks, right?
Yeah, I think too. No, for
So we
me.
did a small rebranding of the office hours event to a community coffee break. So I actually managed to prepare a coffee. I'm not sure if you can see that, but it's
I
actually a
got
little.
the snack for the coffee, which is like the Ferrero Rocher thing. So I got the chocolate.
Yeah, I actually have a sweet tooth, so I basically mixing my coffee with a lot of cocoa, and yeah, it's some sort of a really sweet beverage. Anyway, how you doing, Dima?
Doing good, doing good. Good to be back.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of recently a lot of interesting kind of topics we've been running on. A lot of interesting challenges. So yeah, good to be back here and sharing it with everyone.
We have a lot of names that I'm not usually see in the chat. We have Nevo, David here, Prosper, Ronnie came, Codley's son. So welcome all to the live stream. Really amazing, and we are really hyped to see you all. So Dima, can you share with us what happened during the time that from the past office hours event that we had?
Yeah, so I think we are progressing. In the last office hours, we talked about that we are starting tackling some of the topics we've discussed previously. So we spoke about variants and we spoke about the step variant, sorry, and we spoke about the ability to add conditions on the tenant level for the integration. So with the latest releases, we are just wrapping up the 0.20, or we'll see if it's going to be just a patch on 19 because there is nothing kind of breaking there. So just like more
Mm-hmm.
addition from the previous items. So we are releasing those items. So basically, we will have the step variants, which we are finalizing it in the upcoming, let's say, couple of weeks. We are already in the midst of the work there. So basically, allow you to create different variants on steps, so you can do modifications for given tenants or based on other rules, which is a really really nice addition. And we are in the midst of the work of the planning and kind of technical evaluation and customer reviews on the translation management stuff. So we almost finished with kind of the design aspect of it, and I hope we will start of the actual hands-on work around the week after the next one. So we
Mm-hmm.
are starting with the implementation phases and got a lot of interesting feedback from different people from the community, from different customers from all around the world. So and I would can share maybe some of the more latest designs a bit later today here. Um, and there is a lot of small other kind of improvements and good. Maybe there is not as huge, but widely requested from our community members. So things like the ability to have global user preferences. So basically,
Mm-hmm.
something like, hey, as a subscriber, I don't want to get communication over all of the workflows over email or globally for like I just want to disable the emails or SMS or etc. Previously, you would have to go kind of each one individually and untoggle them. So we're
Mm-hmm.
creating a bit more easier primitives to work with them. There is some other improvements in the digest workflow. So basically creating filters on digest so you can run the digest conditionally if you would love to, with perhaps different configurations. So you can set an actual condition for the node, which we will be releasing in the upcoming releases.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Were there
what
any particular challenges that you faced with the team, or kind of very something that felt out of the ordinary feedback that you received lately?
So we've done obviously the documentation update recently, and there
Right.
was a lot of lessons learned there of how we can perhaps do it a bit better on the next time. So specifically with kind of the cutoff, and people are trying to look some of the old info and like providing the link going back. So we're doing a lot of investment, I think, in the documentation area, and it's always
That's
kind of
okay.
a challenge, and something that you always want to be better at,
Right.
as you know. So this is one of the interesting areas that the team has done incredible effort, and I think the new doc looks really astonishing. And we will be adding a bit more illustrations and diagrams to better kind of articulate, the different parts of the Novo system. So this was one part of it. The second part of we started to work on the digest engine, and over time, the whole digest mechanism became more and more heavy in terms of the mental capacity you would need to have how things are working, specifically around time.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's a moving kind of time span, and then you add concurrency into the kind of into the actual equation, and it can becomes a bit really challenging to understand. Okay, so basically what happens if two events are processed at the exact same millisecond in time, right? Specifically with high concurrent system,
Mm.
this chance can happen, and then how you should treat the digest, like should you which of them should take kind
Take
of
precedent, yeah.
yeah, exactly. And we've sat, and David and the team kind of, there was a lot of work about improving some of the testing coverage we have, just so we will be more confident in refactoring it into the future. So basically making sure that all of the existing tests are, covering as much as we need to, specifically around the concurrency use cases. And it was a lot of fun to kind of, we've sat together and it's like, okay, so what if this event happens here? So it created those mirror world of trying to actually, explain time as it moves, and
The
like each,
spider webs.
yeah, and it was quite fun experience to kind of articulate the difficulties of those very, in some cases, edge scenarios, but they
Yeah.
still can happen, and we need to deal with them. So for a lot of people, it's something not happening, but we have customers with quite high concurrency and throughput. So for some of those cases, we need to make sure that our testing suite is actually covers all of those edge cases, and it's sometimes hard to kind of simulate those edge scenarios, and we kind of
I have a question. So, for example, once you receive a feedback from one of the users regarding, let's say, an edge case scenario, the workflow or the flow of working on this particular scenario, it's something that you mentioned Miro. So it's something that you visualizing on Miro, like the whole steps and the whole flow. And then uh, like by the end you will try to also create some sort of a test to make sure that this will pass in each of those steps and each of those flows, like even with the edge cases.
Yeah, so basically, I think one of the challenges specifically around one, there are easy ones, right? Is like they're very deterministic in the sense that if you would do a specific set of actions, it will always happen. So those are the easy ones. But in some cases, specifically with the concurrent ones, it can become a bit flaky. So basically, uh, one time the test will pass, and then the second time it will not pass, and the third time it will pass again. So you were like, hey, is it happening because of the CI environment, or maybe there's some issues with kind of what happens in the CI, and it's not an actual issue. And we
Yeah.
kind of decided, okay, let's review our whole approach about this, and kind of review all of the existing tasks to make sure that, okay, in what possible scenarios, and you kind of on the theoretical side, and when you start with this, of like what the exact kind of scenario needs to happen in order for it to be reality. And then it's kind of a combination of working with code and trying to understand, okay, let's say you have two concurrent executions and one of them arrives here, what happens to the other one? And you kind of do this mental, kind of figure. And then once you have, okay, you are much closer to simulate those kind of conditions, right? So you can
Mhm.
fire, let's say, 100 events at once, or doing something like to really provoke this flakiness to make sure that it's not 1 or 0, but it has more chances to fail, basically. And
Yeah.
then trying to identify and mock the exact kind of configurations to make sure you for certain know that you have tested this flow where this event came before the previous one or the next one. And it's challenging, so it's a lot of sometimes.
Basically, create as many data points, like to absorb it much more correctly and not kind of just um,
Yeah,
base the
because
hypothesis on the small kind of data set.
yeah, because in some cases, you can measure it, and maybe because of the CI environment, the testing environment of the rich kind of set components can be small, or the CI machine can be slow, so you can get those flaky results. But
Yeah.
you still want to make sure that the conditions you are testing are not affected by those outside components to as much as possibly you can actually do that. And it's it's challenging. It's sometimes like sit and you need to kind of, okay, first see it in your head, and we've kind of sat and step by step, and okay, we come here, what happens if there are five of those happening at the same time, and how
Right.
they will interact with each other, and etc. And we are utilizing something called the distributed locking mechanism to make sure that
Hmm.
we have only one of the, let's say, five concurrent jobs will actually create a digest out of all of those jobs that are like trying to access this resource at the exact same time, and relying some of the MongoDB capabilities, but also in a
Hmm.
kind of self-served kind of distributed locking mechanism behind this.
Yeah.
Um, but even with this, it's sometimes you can get in this various scenarios between the different types of digest we offer, and the scheduled and the back off. And so it's, yeah,
Anyway,
it's,
it sounds very challenging, but also like a challenge that I don't think that it's really not in your power or in the team's power to overcome.
yeah, I think the team is doing a really fantastic job of first identifying those, and they're maybe kind of hidden the from the flashlights, I would say, but there is still a lot of kind of back end work associated to this. And the workflow engine is growing with capabilities, and how can we keep kind of making sure that we have a very good and trustable testing framework around
Nice.
that. And also, how can we make sure that the velocity won't be kind of down because of the growing number of features? So it's really this balance in between those two, and we kind of took a bit took a bit step, and we decided, okay, we first need to fix some of the previous things before we adding new items on top of them, so
Yeah.
we be certain that the things we're doing are not making it worse or harder to maintain.
Got it. So let's start by let's continue by sharing maybe the screen. If you could maybe show us a bit hands-on of the things that currently um, they are upcoming to be released, or something that you think we should put some sort of emphasis in this stream.
Yeah, sure. So we can go over the translation management. So in the last time we saw it, it was kind of
Should I share your screen now?
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So in the first iteration, we kind of, looked at basically the first iteration we had over the translation management. We have since had quite a lot of conversations with different companies and different types of users, from small to big enterprises, to kind of try to calibrate, like, is it holds ground for all of those use cases?
Yeah.
And we've done a few kind of adjustments based on that. So maybe we can go over it and kind of see, I see also some new people here in the room, so would love to kind of hear your thoughts and opinions. So The very first thing we are looking at in the translation page is something we are still looking for a good name. So if somebody have a good name, I will explain what it is in a second, and you can suggest your names, or how should we call this. We have a few suggestions, but still not finalized on the final terminology, but basically some sort of a group or a namespace where basically, once you create the first translation, we will be asking you what is the default language for your system. So basically, should it be fallbacking to English or Spanish or any other language by default, right? If the key is not available or something is happening, so which of the languages should we preview you by default, and etc.
Yeah.
And then basically, the group is basically hosts a subset of your JSON file. So one approach is to have a single group with one big, JSON localization file. And then you can access it and use the keys inside Novu. But in other cases, you would maybe love to split those big translation files into multiple departments in your organization, or smaller kind of chunks, depending on the domain of where those notifications are managed.
To ease the maintenance of those translations, probably,
Yeah,
right?
so it's basically some way for you to group specific localization files under, a particular localization group or a namespace. Again, if you have name suggestions, please write them in the comment of how we should call it. But basically, each group have a human readable name and a group identifier. The identifier is kind of a serializable key, and you will use it later in the templates themselves, and I will go to them in a second. Um, each group have target languages. So basically, you would specify, hey, I would love to have Spanish, English, German, and Portuguese, let's say, in my app here. So you would specify them. And the next thing after basically the actual creation, so you can see that those files are actually empty. So we haven't uploaded yet anything to there. So basically, after the creation of the group, you have really a few ways of actually uploading the files in there.
We have
And
another guest here.
we have Nikolai jumped as well.
Yeah, so everybody say hi to Nikolai. Nikolai is our product designer. Basically, once we entered to the Figma realm, I guess he got some sort of a notification like, "Oh wow, it's MySpace. What they're doing here." Hey Nikolai, how you doing? We can hear you. Can you make sure that your mic is configured?
Can you hear
All
me?
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're audible
Looking
now.
forward to hearing the feedback from the community.
Nice. All right. So, Dimag, you can meanwhile continue from the point where you left.
Yeah, sure. So basically, there are two ways to actually upload the actual localization files. And again, this is a very similar concept to what you would use in localizing your apps, like the I-89 approach. So basically, you have different files for different languages, and for each key, you would actually have the localized version of this key. So here, let's first explore kind of the manual file upload from your local system, so you can actually pick the file and then upload it directly from the web interface. We are also will allow you to do that from the actual CLI, so you can copy the CLI snippet and push them locally, either in your CI environment, locally from your machine, or from your server, or whatever it is. Depending on what workflow you are actually using, a lot of the people using Git is their source of truth, basically, where they will be kind of managing the conflicts and working with third-party systems like Crowdin or Localize, or PoEditor, or like some of the localization management vendors out there, and then cloning it back and then utilizing as part of either the CI or manually just pushing them back to Novu. And once you upload the actual file, so basically what you can see is that we try to identify the languages of the files. If we couldn't identify the language, you would have to manually specify whether this file is English, or for what language this file actually is connected to. And you can also preview the actual file content. So you can actually click on the item here, so you can see the contents of this file, how many keys we were able to extract, and in a very similar fashion. So you can still see the kind of nested structure you can see in JSON files, and any I18 compatible JSON file should be totally okay to use here.
All right. Actually looking really good. If someone from the chat has any question or something that you would like us to address or to answer or just to share our thoughts, please feel free to write in the chat. Before we will continue, I know that a few minutes ago, Amir wrote a question, so I would love us to address that now. So how can one have stats on all activities on my Novu account and not only current month?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. So basically, by default, Novu will retain, specifically on the free accounts on the cloud, we are retaining for 30 days. So basically, the detailed activity feed that you are seeing is retained only up to a month. And looking down into the future, we will kind of start to think about how we can provide a bit longer terms. Specifically, because of the volume of notifications generated with some of our users, we cannot have a very long retention times when it comes to notifications. So it's definitely something on our radar. It's under our roadmap as kind of the activity feed and the analytics section, basically, of Novu. But currently, the limitations is again due to the high volume, and we cannot retain those messages forever. And I would kind of write it down for myself, Amir, and maybe we can jump in together on a call to kind of try to see, or a GitHub issue to kind of what are the interesting parts and bits you would love to see, so we can kind of work around them and try to see how it will be connected together.
We have another question from Amir, but it's actually addressed to Nikolai. I know that Dima, you might also answer this, but although we have Nikolai here as a guest, I would like him to address that as well. So about the translations, what was the group concept about?
The group concept is that our assumption is that people need a different chunk of translations. For example, you work when you work alone, even when you work alone, you're a kind of independent developer. You can store your translation in different chunks. So initially we decided to call it group, but we're open to any suggestions. So like we didn't start the feature. Maybe it can be a chunk or whatever. We started with the project, but then we decided to stick with more high-level naming for that, and we decided to stick with the group. For example, you're doing a marketing campaign, and you want to store all the translations related to the marketing campaign in one place. So you can upload files for different languages, and you know that all of the translations related to your marketing campaign is stored in the group marketing campaign. Then you want to store all the, let's say, translations related to your UI or buttons or controls or whatever. You can create another group and call it like UI, or you can call it the controls, and you can store all the translation related to the controls. So the main idea is to have an ability to split between different topics and themes and organize your translation around those topics. But we're open to any feedback, so feel free to share your opinion on that. Maybe you think it can be used in another way.
Yeah, and I think, as I mentioned previously, you can still work for simple use cases. You can create a single group. You can put all your big files, in there, and it's totally okay. In some cases, your product is broke down into modules, right? So you would say, okay, this module files localized and managed maybe in a different area. So yeah, the namespace is also another definitely good idea. So, and similarly to the namespace concept, Samir, so the way you would actually use them later in the future, so you can see that all of the namespaces or groups will be available. So all of the keys can be used under them. And when you are actually referencing a key, you would use the group identifier first, and then you would select the different content inside of it. So in the same file, you could reference basically multiple sources for your notifications, or a single one if, for more simpler use cases where you don't have to manage all of those namespaces or groups, you could just basically select it like this and call it a day. I hope that answers your question.
Meanwhile, of course, if someone else has any questions, something that you would like us to address, Dima or Nikolai or any of us, please feel free to write in the chat. Meanwhile, let's continue with the other things that we and the community and the users might anticipate for the upcoming releases and kind of the things that you guys are working on right now.
Yeah, so I think one of the interesting also conversations we've had around the localization is, dealing with default values, and it was kind of an interesting chat with the team about how can we provide, the actual default values and error validation. So if I will find it, I think it should be somewhere here. So, what happens when you're using an actual non-existing variable inside the system, or you would love maybe to put a default value for if a key does not exist. So one approach we discussed was, okay, we can utilize something like, let me see if I can open this one. So you can go and say space, and then you can provide like a welcome fallback value, basically in line, with the actual keys you are using, which is one way of doing that. The other way is utilizing a bit more the actual variable span we already have today, and follow the similar pattern of clicking on the actual variable in the variable pane, where you could specify the default value. You could specify if this is a required value, meaning that you would love to fail the whole context execution of the notification in case this variable is absent. So you can a bit control it more in a granular way. So if you have any thoughts about kind of how would you expect to, see if you use the key that doesn't exist, or if you would love to provide a default value. So I think this is kind of the latest conversation we had from yesterday about those types of challenges and how the different ways we can actually achieve them. And let's see, Amir, from user's point of view, a translation string word will be almost always the same translation. Using too much modularity might bring the complexity of the text and maintainers. Yes, so that's definitely true. So basically, each key will always be uniquely identifiable for a single group, or like you will always get the same result for a single key. Basically, the difference here is you would see that you have the security alerts, which is a namespace or a group. If you would love to use a different group for a different key, or maybe a similarly named key, you would have to specify the UI group content something like this. So basically, they will be always uniquely identifiable. So it's not that you will be using it based on the context. So you will still manage one copy. It usually becomes handy when you would love to split your big file, specifically with very big products, and speaking with very big organizations who might have, very big chunks of JSON files where each team is responsible for a different part of it. So you can basically upload them as different groups in that case. But it is always uniquely identifiable to a single translation, as you mentioned. I hope I kind of got it right. And by the way, if you are up to, we can schedule some even a bit easier. Sometimes I wish we could kind of bring somebody from the crowd and kind of put them in the conversation. Maybe we can explore it on Discord next time. But we can also jump Amir to a call if you're up to, and I would love kind of to show you and hear your thoughts about it, and concerns and considerations. If you're up to it, send me a message on Discord, and we can schedule something like for 30 minutes or even less.
Would love to participate also. Yeah, actually, I would add my 5 cents to Dima's words. So our intention is not to block users to do it. If you don't need so much granularity, you shouldn't add it. You can still keep it simple, keep only one group without any other models. So it will be really plain and simple list for you.
Yeah. So, is there anything else that you would like to share? Something that you would like to showcase here in this stage?
Um, I think, those were more of the open kind of things and considerations we've been discussing. One thing around, let me see where I can find it. Yeah, so we discussed the actual kind of error states and, what is considered a blocking one and what is mostly a warning, and how would you specify, the fallback value if you would love to have it. Um, it's something that I would love kind of once we have a bit more initial version behind the feature flag, so kind of get people perspective and like after you playing with it. Um, for example, the main flow of, okay, what happens when you add a new key? How would you expect to work around it? So our current assumption is that you can either use the whole flow of actually adding the keys as you would do regularly and modify the localization files, or you can start with a non-existing key. And then you have the path of, okay, you have the non-existing key, you're prototyping something out, you still want to see some preview in, let's say, your default English language, and then you would do like the whole flow behind the scenes, either in localized, to work with your translators or people who are speaking those native languages, and then incorporate it into the flow itself. So this is some of the kind of other things that we would love to hear, feedback or thoughts of how would you go about creating new keys, right? Or like incorporating something that is uh, not existing yet on your localization file. So yeah, so this is around that. And yeah, I think those are the kind of key items from my end, at least with the localization open questions we had. Nikolai, anything from your end?
No, not yet. I think that the most interesting part will be when we ship this under the feature flag and people will have an opportunity to play around with, because now
Absolutely.
they can kind of guess it's just an assumption. But yeah, I'm also the same as you. I'm curious about whether it's enough, whether it's clear that you can specify any key inside the editor, and would it be enough just to provide an ability to just preview it, and maybe it's not clear enough, or this flow is can be preview in different languages. I think about German too.
We have here another question
Yeah.
from Amir.
Yeah, so I'm just about finding the actual mock. So yes, definitely previewing the language is definitely something we would love to allow. I think here, Nikolai, right?
Yeah,
Or
go down a bit down.
yeah, okay. So basically, we are also doing an improvement on all the previews for all the channels. So today, previews are mostly for email and in-app. And we are introducing basically the previews for all channels. So here is an example of the push channel. And basically, you can switch the language that the preview will be based on. So if you would switch this to German, we would actually fetch those localization keys from the German language and then preview it for them. And this is also including kind of the different variables and etc. around that. So yeah, it's totally an important thing. And we found ourselves, I've been localizing systems previously as well. And sometimes, with specific language, long words or like edge cases that you would need to see how it actually looks in the UI and if it's not breaking it. It's a very good point. And Amir, it's definitely not too much questions. I really love your to hear what you think, and this is why we are doing those types of events here. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, we actually encourage people to ask questions. Like, please ask them.
Meanwhile, I know that you guys already showcased or at least touched slightly and if not even slightly, what you wanted to share with the folks here. Anyway, we still have a bit more time. If anyone has any questions that you would like us to address, something to ask in the chat. Meanwhile, I also want to, Dima, could you maybe also open a tab for the Hack Squad page?
Yeah, sure. A Hack
So
Squad, Hacktoberfest. I'm always confused between.
I'm talking about Hack Squad, hacksquad.dev. So, as you all may know or may not know, Oktoberfest is on the horizon, basically starting 1st of October. And we also launching a parallel event, which called a Hack Squad. And this is something that comes from the same essence, which is contributing to open source projects. But the main differentiator from the Hacktoberfest event is that in Hack Squad, you're basically building your squad, your team of 4 to 5 people, maybe, where you all contributing together to open source projects and you collecting points together as a team, and the squad that will win, or I think we have, I'm not sure the actual guidelines, like how many teams will be eligible for the actual prizes and swag, etc. But please make sure to go to hacksquad.dev. It's something that uh, our growth guy Nevo David is working on tirelessly, and like it's a really big deal. We also going to participate as much as we can in the Oktoberfest official event by DigitalOcean, where if you want to contribute to open source projects, you definitely can join. Come to Novu, go to our GitHub page where you can find good first issues that eligible for the Oktoberfest. I know that the developer experience team is preparing a lot of issues to work on the documentation side, and maybe a bit content creation side. I know that Dima and uh, the development team and the engineering team are also preparing some good first issues, or issues in general that are more technical. Am I correct, Dima?
Yeah, yeah. So we are actually done a lot of thinking about what type of contribution. I'm sorry, I'm a bit swirling because my back is killing me. So I'm I'm trying to put my weight on different parts of the chair. So basically, we try to figure out different ways of incorporating contribution from different levels and different types of contributors. So some issues may be a bit more backend and kind of behind the scenes stuff, and maybe some people would love to participate more in the front end aspects of Novo. We are a React application, and people who are learning, front end development and kind of have some experience with React and would love to participate. There is a lot of room for help as well. We will be releasing the officially like all the tickets right before the start of October, so maybe a couple of days before, and they will be labeled with the Oktoberfest label, so you can find whatever. And it's not only with the new issues, we are adding all the previous ones that are
Right.
available on GitHub are also open, and you are welcome to join our Discord server in terms of getting help for setting up the project and kind of getting started with things. And yeah, it's going to be a fun time. Last year, I think we got like almost 100 or even more than 100 contributors during October, and it was really fantastic experience for the team and kind of getting to know a lot of new people. So
Yeah.
looking forward for what this year will be bring, and would love to see you in our repository.
Absolutely. We are gathering and organizing many different events in collaboration with other open source communities and companies and projects. So make sure just to stay tuned as much as you can, if it's through our Discord server or through our Twitter or x.com account. Make sure just to be there and be aware that we are participating, and we have a lot of interesting events and things that you might benefit from. So just stay tuned with that. Okay, and we have, it might be the last question for this event.
So, can we use Novu for email outreach automation? So, if I got you correctly, so basically, are you speaking about more of the cold email kind of campaigns and outreach you would do if I got it properly?
Like
So,
Mailchimp. kind of
Yeah, or maybe MailChimp or some other tools in the field. So basically, we are not focusing a lot around marketing automation use cases. So those are the use cases you would maybe do with MailChimp, where you would have a mailing list and then you would like use, the actual UI. Or for example, I know that for the cold emails, there was another one, really great tool that I've used previously. We are not really focusing around that. We are mostly about providing tools like MailChimp or the marketing automation tools, provide the primitives so they can use Novu behind the scenes, but
yeah.
we're not focusing around kind of the drip campaigns or those types of marketing automation or cold email sequences. That there are fantastic tools out there, like again MailChimp, and I forgot the name. There's another one, really good one, but yeah, this is a bit less of our focus currently. We might maybe even integrate with those types of systems, but we are a bit kind of providing the more transactional types of notifications and needs. We
Technically,
actually have customers who do marketing automation as a product, and they utilize Novu behind the scenes for the actual communication aspects of the script campaigns and etc.
you can use a set of our tools like delay and digest for using that. It's a kind of strange way of using no, like it's not the right way, but
Is that the right
anyway, you're able to do that. It's not so convenient like in the MailChimp, but still you can use it as a tool.
Yeah, that's exactly, like, you can work around it, but it won't be as easy, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, and just go with Intercom or MailChimp or some of those tools.
All right. So I think we're going to wrap up this stream. And thank you, Dima. Thank you, Nikolai, for joining, for participating, for sharing some of the insights of your day-to-day job, of the challenges that you are facing. I think that it was a great, insightful event. And I hope that everyone who participated part-time or a bit in the chat also got something from this. So again, thank you so much. I know that those people here and we all at Novu are always anticipating for every feedback that you can provide us with. If it's something that you think that we could improve, something that we could add, anything, we are really open for it. We are really just striving for the opportunities to speak with you. So again, feel free to reach out to us in any convenient possible way for you. And again, thank you all for joining. It was a wonderful time, and I wish you all a good rest of the week. Bye all.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Bye bye.